We really hope you like this video. Please comment, like, and subscribe to get more content like this. Hi, Heidi.
Hi, Joe. How are you?
Yeah, I'm all right. Where are you in the world now?
I'm in London in Haringey, just near Finsbury Park.
Ah, okay, cool.
Yeah. How about, are you? Where are you based?
I'm in Ireland, about an hour outside Dublin.
Yeah. Cool.
Do you like my donuts?
Oh yeah, lovely. I had to move I had washing hanging with a bra hanging right next to me. Probably not that professional. I'll move that one.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure. So how are you? Where did you grow up? Did you grow up in London?
No, I'm Australian. So.
Oh, you're Australian.
Yeah,
Sorry. Yeah. And were you? Did you start doing comedy in Australia?
No, I started writing comedy. I started as a writer and never wanted to do stand up at all, and moved over here to do more writing. And then I think it was about 6 or 7 years here writing, but not really getting it in and not knowing how to get an agent and all that. And then had to like.
Writing?
I wrote lots of film scripts that would like get read, but obviously never made. And I wrote for like quite a few sketch shows in Australia, but so that kind of stuff mainly. And then I spent 2 years writing a book that no one will ever read. And it was after 2 years of that I suddenly just had a middle of the night panic going, what am I doing with my life? And then I was like, oh, maybe I'll try stand up, even though it's terrifying and I have no wish to do it. And then psyched myself for a month and went and did it. And then went, oh, this is way easier than waiting around for someone to read my joke in 8 to 10 weeks. So that's kind of how I got into it, and then went very hardcore very quickly into the stand-up. So.
Oh, right. I'm amazed at people who can write a whole novel at the hope that somebody...
Yeah. Well, it taught me patience very much, and like lockdown has been nice because I've gone back to writing for the 6 months. I'm like, oh, I forgot how much I love this, and I can just sit at the table and write all day. Whereas stand up, as soon as you got a gig again, I'm like, oh, it's so hard to focus when I got a gig on that night if you haven't gigged for a while.
It's hard to focus on writing.
Yeah. I think just I'm getting better back at it again. But when I just had my first couple of gigs back, I was like walking around like really distracted and miserable, and I was like, I forgot stand up is just so consuming that you can't really think about other things if you're a bit nervous that day. So
it consumes you for the whole day.
Yeah, I think now that it used to consume me all the time, and about a year ago I'd stopped getting stage fright, so then I could be very casual about it. But then having 6 months off and then suddenly having a gig on, I was like, oh my god, what am I doing? What kind of life is this to lead? But now I think I've gone flip back. It feels like that kind of, all the comics I saw at a gig last night were all going, yeah, it's been real nice having like dinners at home and I haven't missed any of that life and blah blah. But then we're like, oh, it's kind of nice to be out with the comics and making jokes. And I was like, oh, we've all immediately forgotten how nice it was not to do this.
Yeah, I feel the same. Yeah, because I actually was enjoying being at home and not, quite often just driving for hours to a gig and all this kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I did. I actually was in Slovakia last week to do some gigs.
Oh wow!
That's how far I had to go.
Yeah.
And but I did 4, and by the third one, the first 2, I was really all over the place. I blanked on my first gig. I actually completely did not know what I was going to say. And,
oh boy. That's such a nightmare in my head.
Yeah. But by the 3rd, that's when I went, oh yeah, now I've got it back within 3 gigs. So,
Yeah. I think that was almost exact same number for me. Of just like, the first 2, I started to try to riff with the audience at my very first one. Go like, oh, been a while, and they just stared at me, and I was like, oh, I've lost my banter. Let's get into the jokes. But yeah.
So it's a lot different writing sketch. If when you're writing sketch comedy, were you writing with a group or writing?
It was usually on my own. There was a couple of times I got to do writers' room stuff, and then I've done a bit of writers' room here. And I actually do prefer the writer's room stuff. It's usually on your own, and I thought that's what I preferred because I'm very like, no, this is how the joke should be. But when you're in a writer's room, it's amazing how many more jokes you all come up with because you're just bouncing off each other. So yeah, I just did some writing for a job a week ago, and it was meant to be a writer's room, but then it turned into just sit on your own and go through this script all day. And I was like, oh, it's quite hard to be, just don't get a gauge of whether you're being that funny when you're on your own. So yeah.
I agree. Yeah, I think for sketch comedy, at least two people, it helps just to bounce off somebody. You know?
Yeah, or just to say an idea and see them go, oh, and you go, oh, let's not waste time on that one then.
Yeah. I believe actually I've heard anyway that when there's a duo, a writing partnership, one of them is the pacer and one of them is the writer, the actual physical writer.
Yeah.
And one just paces back and forth.
Yeah, I did some writing with a friend last year, and I realized like I think he would naturally get his laptop out and start the writing, and then after a while I was like, oh, feels like quite tricky to me if I'm not in control. I was so used to writing it myself that eventually I'd be like, can I have a go for an hour? I was like, is this a controlling side of me that's like, no, I meant the joke should be this. But yeah, I think it's nice to just relax and have someone write it, but I think you got to change it up a bit.
Okay, yeah. So you do feel perhaps you're losing a little bit of control when you're writing with a group.
I think not in the writer's room for sketch shows. It was quite freeing because I don't. It's a bad thing to say, but it's never been my show I'm writing on, so you don't feel like you're just like whatever idea I have, they can take or leave it. But I think this because it was me and a friend writing an idea we had together, then suddenly I'm very like, well, we don't want to go in that direction, or at least you just want to get out what you were thinking. But I do love, I've written with friends a few times and it always ends up with much better jokes just because you've got two brains if you're both on the wavelength.
If you're both on the same wavelength.
Yeah.
You could be writing with someone whose taste in comedy is completely opposite to you. That wouldn't work. But
yeah, that would be an awful day. Yeah.
And then with film, were you writing comedy films? Scripts?
Yeah, everything comedy. Yeah. I think one day my big change will be when I learn how to write emotions without feeling awkward about it. But yeah, everything so far has been very stupid comedy. So
right. So that's I don't think I've ever written a film comedy script. I mean, it's obviously a very difficult thing to do. I would imagine because you have to have a plot. I mean, you have some kind of an emotional investment, but by the audience, right?
Yeah. Well, I think I spent years. I just taught myself structure from reading lots of like film structure books, all the like Robert McKee and Save the Cat and all that. Yeah. And then when the weird thing was, I got really obsessed with structure, and like my girlfriend doesn't hate, but she said I ruined films for a bit because I'd go, in 2 minutes they're gonna meet the blah blah and all that, and I was just a smug little prick. But I think when I started stand-up I used that same approach for a lot of my jokes for a while, and I was like, oh, I'll do it this way, see if that's it. And sometimes that worked, but sometimes it meant the audience was sitting there going, okay, like I don't think you can do that for a whole show without a lot of work, but it gives you a nice basic understanding of bringing conflict in and all that kind of thing, which is
Oh, and that can work in stand-up as well.
Yeah, I think it can work, and then it can also not work, and it's an eternal struggle knowing which way you've gone. But like my first show at Edinburgh, because that's the show where everyone's like, oh, you got to introduce yourself to them and explain who you are and tell a bit of a story. So I kind of did that with a bit of the structure of the Save the Cat type thing, but then the more I worked on it, the more they went away, and I think it's just you get that natural narrative in your head structure, and that comes out naturally in the end.
Right, yeah. I mean, obviously doing a show in Edinburgh is a different kettle of fish than doing a 20-minute spot in
Oh, definitely, yeah. I think I tried to use some of the really basics of it with a couple of my long, like a 5-minute joke and that, because there's just that very basic character wants this stops them, they think they've got this, blah, blah. And I tried that with, a few 5-minute routines, but I don't really do that anymore. It's just do where it feels naturally to go. So, yeah.
Right. Yeah, that's really interesting. Yeah, I've never thought of stand-up that way, but
I think there's a reason most people don't, and it's because stand-up's very different. So I think I've been learning that slowly, but yeah.
All right. And so with film, nothing. Have you made a film?
No, I basically I got one film script optioned just after I moved here and got funding for that. So I had a wonderful year was able to chuck in my day job for a year and work on that. And I was like, everything's sorted. And then the company didn't renew the option, couldn't find funding, because everything I write is like huge budget and ridiculous. So then so then I went back to my day job and then tried to write a novel going, that'll be easier because they don't need a budget. And I was like, oh, but you got to be a really good writer. So but I was like, let's try stand up. No one needs money for me to get up and do jokes. And then found out I liked it. So
okay. So when was your first gig?
It was 5 years ago. Yeah, just 5 years in June, I think. So
okay, in London, yeah.
Yeah, at the Cavendish in Stockwell, where many comics start in London. So.
Right. Okay. And so straight off, you were hooked.
Yeah, I was very hooked on the writing side straight away. My nerves were very intense for the first year, and took me a long time to not be miserable all day, every day. But,
yeah, it's tough. I've been doing a good while now, but I think the first 5 years were I was always nervous.
Yeah.
I would actually.
Has it gone away for you a bit?
Yeah, totally gone away. It's unbelievable how relaxed I am now. I can't believe it sometimes. I go, I used to be so nervous. I used to be having like nearly panic attacks. And half of my brain's going, you don't have to do this. You can just go home and sit and have a cup of tea.
Yeah.
and that carried on, and then when I go up another level, the nerves would they seem to go away, and then I go up a level to a bigger audience or a bigger room, or and the nerves came back again,
Yeah.
And at one point I was having a little kind of thing where I couldn't let go of the mic stand.
Yeah.
Because it felt like then I was completely at sea.
Yeah, it's weird. And then that would get in your head, so that then you're aware of that, and you're like, oh no, this is my crutch. And then that you work on that in your head, going like, well, I'm nothing without the mic. And yeah, it's very weird what your brain does to you.
Yeah, I was always having like a vertigo thing where if I let go of the mic stand, I was like getting a bit slightly dizzy. And while at the same time keeping up this facade of this.
Yeah, I think I was really lucky that the first year when I was just completely fear-riddled on stage, everyone said it was like, you look so relaxed, and it was just because I talk so slow naturally that I didn't speed up or anything. So all the nervous people were talking really fast. I was talking really slow. In my head, I was talking very fast, but they were like, I think I relaxed you. I think I'm just a very slow talker. So yeah. But I remember the first year, every time I went to a gig, I'd just be waiting and looking at all the people sitting down having drinks to watch the gig, and I'd be like, you're so lucky, you such lucky people that you don't have to be up here. I hate you so much. Why do you get to just sit there and have a nice night with your friends?
Oh yeah, I've had those feelings. Yeah, and so did you enter any competitions then, stand-up competitions?
Yeah, I did. So You Think You're Funny and BBC. And I did a Funny Women one and Leicester Square one.
Right. How do you find them as opposed to just doing a normal night of stand-up?
Yeah, they were. It felt like that was the whole way of life for stand-up for the first 2 years. That was like what all you and your friends focused on. And now I'm so glad I don't do them anymore. I think by the time the last one I did was the BBC one, and that one I enjoyed because it was just I think I was more confident by then, and because I won that one and So You Think You're Funny, but So You Think You're Funny was I was so nervous, and I was very shocked when I won, because I went on stage and was quite new, and I couldn't get the mic out of the stand and just struggled for what felt like an eternity. It was probably 2 seconds, but then I just like went, oh, ha, ha, and just was so nervous, and I could see how bad I was compared to usual in my head. And I think one of the reviews was like, she had a shaky start and all that. So I just hated that whole experience. But then by the time I did BBC, I think I was just able to be like, it was terrifying, but it was a very different thing a year later. So yeah.
So you won that BBC?
Yeah. And that was really helpful for me. That got me, I think, because I won So You Think You're Funny the year before, and I then immediately had a huge imposter syndrome. I think because I thought I'd done so badly in the actual gig. And so then when I was doing gigs after that, I was really nervous, and I thought everyone there was going like, she won that, like, because it got me some gigs. But I just, in my head, I was like, everyone just thinks I didn't deserve it, and like blah, blah, blah. And so I just was walking around like just a worse comic and hating myself. And then, but by the time I did BBC the next year, I think I liked my material better and I delivered it better. And I knew about the imposter syndrome thing I'd already gone through a year before. So when I won that, I just went, oh, well, just use this to do some nice gigs. And then I got some nice gigs from that, and got an agent and stuff. So BBC really helped me or both of them really helped me. But
in your confidence, BBC really helped you.
Yeah. So You Think You're Funny should have helped me. I just was an insecure person more at that time. Yeah, I think that the competitions as a rule, I think is a very, like, they've been so great for me, but I don't know that they are how comedy, like, it's a horrible thing as well, because you are so aware doing it of how completely random it is, and how random it is how you could perform that night. Like the other competitions I didn't do well in, and I didn't deserve to do well in, and you're like, well, clearly then it's just on the night who did well and all that stuff. So, and I think lots of people then feel so insecure if they don't go well in those competitions, but then you're like, you're just a comic that isn't suited to that specific way of judging the comics on the night in a 5-minute thing. So I'm just really lucky that the set I had at that point for that night. But if I hadn't won, I might have been riddled with insecurity and thought I could never win a competition, blah, blah, blah. So.
Right, yeah. I've never won a competition. Anyway.
Well, that's what I'm talking about.
So what kind of boost does the BBC award give you? It gives you more high-profile gigs, does it?
Yeah, I think basically that's the biggest thing I got from it. It just meant that more comics would book you for things. I think there was a couple of clubs where, like Top Secret, I think I'd tried calling and hadn't been able to get through, and then I called and someone said, just tell them you won the BBC, and I said that, and he was like, oh right, okay, because just opened some doors for me that then that was the main thing, and gives you a bit of confidence for a year, and then you can find ways to get rid of that in your head and go back to hating yourself.
And I mean, you could always do, well, you did Edinburgh, didn't you? You did Edinburgh?
Mm-hmm.
So how did you go about writing that then? Was that
the first show of Edinburgh? I did it quite a weird way, as in I think because I started stand-up later, and as someone who'd been writing for years, I watched so many people and read when I was trying to motivate myself to write a book for 2 years, and I obsessively read all these things of people saying, and it wasn't till I wrote what I wanted to write, and I didn't worry about what anyone else said, that then I thought, so I've always written the jokes I want to write. So when I did my debut, I said to my new agents at the time, I had just spent years watching bad shark films with these two friends, and I said, I think I want my debut show to be about bad shark films, and through that I'm going to introduce tell the story of who I am as well. But I was also really angry about the government and stuff, and I was like, I got to do something about that, but I'm not good at politics. And I was reading all this stuff about how it was all the boring stuff that was going to get us, like boring trade deal clauses. So I also jammed into it it basically became a show where I said, oh, I wanted to talk about this tiny clause in free trade deals that I've read about that's really damaging, but it's really boring. So no one likes that. So I'm going to talk about shark films. But then I used it all to talk about who I was, but then all wrap it up at the end into a big metaphor about this trade deal.
Oh my God.
It did not in any way help the world. No one came away going, gotta stop that trade deal, because we're still screwed.
Sounds amazing. Sounds amazing.
Well, it was a lot of the funniest thing about it was the first go I did of it, because it was all like PowerPoint stuff and this big like intricate show, and I like in the first draft I went on this ramble about the internet and how you can go down these holes, and it was all really stupid. But I first tried it in the now famous Barnard Castle, where Dominic Cummings went for his driving test. But I went to do this, and still quite green as a comic, I went to do a preview there with Chris Washington that had been organised for us, and I was on first. It was the first time I'd ever done this thing about trade deals and shark films, and myself and this poor audience of like about 50 very nice, very confused residents of Barnard Castle, who I found out had paid £10 to be there. And I came out, it was no introing, I was the first one. I went, so this is a work in progress. Has anyone been to one before? And they were all like, no. So it means no one's ever seen these jokes before. Anyway, my name's Heidi. So this free trade deal, and it was just an hour of silence of them watching, going, and I'm very polite, but clearly very disappointed in the gibberish that I was saying. And then luckily Chris Washington was performing his show he'd just done in Edinburgh before, so he gave them an actual hour of jokes. And I went to the toilet at the end, and I was in the cubicle and heard these women just going, well, thank God they had him on. I was just like, I had to stay in the cubicle waiting. It was so funny.
God.
Yeah, but I turned that into part of the show, yeah, because I was just like, I just turned, like, because there was a couple of people that tweeted me trying to be nice afterwards, but saying, I like the shark bits, not a fan of the trade deal stuff, and so I used that. But yeah, it was a big mess of a show.
Yeah, right. And how long did you work? How long did it take to work on it and get it?
Well, that was in January. I did that preview, and so then I think I did about 20 previews until Edinburgh over time. It was a hard one to work on because I couldn't ever try it out in bits at any normal gigs, because it was like a projector, and the whole thing was like one whole idea. So I could only properly try it. But I think because I had spent years writing on my own, I knew how to just work on the jokes without the audience. So,
cool. And what are bad shark films?
Oh, so there's just a huge genre that very much came into its own in around 1999. That is all just straight to video, very cheaply made ones like Shark Attack 1, 2, and 3. And
so, yeah, but how do bad shark films relate to the trade deal?
So I believe that I had a timeline, and I showed that Jaws came out just after Watergate. And so I plotted that shark films, in my theory, which is like kind of tongue-in-cheek, but I was also like half in my head going, that's pretty close, that shark films match up with the cynicism of us against politics that began with Watergate. But then it goes up and down, but then if we get too cynical, then suddenly the shark films become too self-aware and bad. So it's like the rise and fall of shark films matches that. And within that, I was able to jam in this free trade deal I've been talking about that came out in, I think, 1988, which was when the golden age of when we had the shark film drought. And it was like when the free trade deal came out, that was when climate change started to be ignored because of all these corporations doing trade deal things. And then when the golden age of shark films came back was 99, which was when there were protests that I'd read Naomi Klein had talked about, like protests against the World Trade Organization. But it all we had golden age of shark films because everyone was like angry at the government but had the energy to do something. And then 2010 was when the MP expenses scandal happened, and that's when we all started to go, what's the point? All the MPs, they're just as bad as one another, which was kind of matched by us going, what's the point of trying with a shark film? Just make it bad on purpose, blah, blah, blah.
Mm-hmm.
So,
wow, that's fascinating.
it was intricate, and it's all shit, kind of, but I also was going, you can see, I watched a lot of Adam Curtis at the time and was watching what he was saying about artists responding in New York to like stuff in the 70s, and it got very in depth, and then I had to take a lot of that out to not confuse people sitting in an audience going, I was promised shark film clips and this is intense.
Yeah. Well, would you say that like kind of films like Jaws or other movies that are about, they're kind of a fear of nature, aren't they? Or that nature is attacking us.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I've actually just been researching again, because I've got a film podcast now where I do all these film theories, and
really? What's that podcast called?
It's called A Thin Layer of Film. We've done 2 seasons, and I do usually again tongue-in-cheek metaphors I force onto a film, but then sometimes, like I did, like When Harry Met Sally is actually about the Cold War, and I just look for correlations and all that. But then some of them, like the Emoji Film, I was like, oh, that's like Toy Story was about small business, and the toys are all small business employees, and the kid is their owner, and he still loves them even though he can't be with them forever. But then the Emoji Film was like, they were just in this kid's phone, and as soon as they started glitching, he was just going to go destroy them all. And I was like, he's like Jeff Bezos, and he does it as banal of evil and all that kind of thing.
Oh, that's fascinating.
Yeah, that one really tied up. I was like, it genuinely is really sad what the Emoji Movie is about. But but I was looking at for this new one, I'm looking at Shark Attack 2, and I actually found all these, like, not really there, but they are there, correlations of like Frankenstein and all that, where it's the fear of nature and it's the awe of God and the sublime of nature, where it's like on the mountain looking out at the world going, isn't God and nature amazing but terrifying? And that's what the monsters kind of are as well. And yeah, and you can see it all in Shark Attack too.
Oh wow! So it's also in awe of nature and God.
Yeah, I think, but it's always us trying to control it and trying to control death through that. And but I mean, you've got to look really hard to find them, but you just get the good literature like the Frankenstein and all that, and then you see that, you know, it's subliminally in a bad shark film just because you can find all those tropes and stuff.
Right, and would you find that in alien movies that there's a fear of
probably, yeah.
Immigrants
I mean, I've really stuck to sharks recently, so I'd have to go research it. I'm sure they've got their whole genre in alien films, but I'll need to work on that.
Oh well, I really want to listen to that podcast. I love film podcasts, and where just various ideas. I mean, if you if you can look at the movie and then watch and then listen to the podcast, or vice versa.
Well, that one was the episode with Brett Goldstein, who he has his film podcast as well. Was the Emoji Movie one, but there's all different theories. One of them I did it tongue in cheek, but then I've made a video of all the connections. One of the theories I did at the start was about the pilot episode of Friends foreshadows The Matrix, and again, that one was very tongue-in-cheek, but the correlations I found were, I was genuinely going, oh my god, this is mind-blowing. Obviously none of that was intended, but it's very fun to just like Google all these things and then go, oh my god, that's in that. It's like forcing a conspiracy theory basically. So
right, that sounds amazing.
It's lots of fun.
Would you like to, now that you're performing stand-up, would you like to write a movie script for yourself to star in?
I think acting is a whole nother thing that I have not got experience in or tried, and I've been like having to dip my toe in, and I can now see, like, much like stand-up, I was so scared of ever going on stage, and then once I did it, I was like, oh, so much of the barrier is in your head and you just got to learn the techniques and relax. So I don't sit there writing things going, oh, and this will be me and blah, blah, blah. I think I'm more like, oh, I could play a small part and that would, so I'm not writing scripts ever thinking, and the person that would be perfect. Like, I would hate to be the one who ruined my script. I would rather have an accomplished, experienced actress come and do the thing I was hoping they'd do.
All right. Yeah. And when you're writing a script, have you got some? So you're writing a comedy, but it's a wacky comedy. But have you got judging by how you think about things, would you have some kind of a political angle or a philosophical angle from
I think I really get into watching lots of the basic YouTube introduction to philosophy stuff. So I think there's always like an undercurrent in there now, especially the older I get. But most of the scripts I used to write always start, which I'm not that proud of, but they always start from like a parody point. I think my whole way of comedy is I look at a trope or a cliche and then try to parody that. But I think the older I get and the worse the world seems and the more politics I read, the more I then put in an undercurrent of aren't corporations horrific type thing. So yeah.
That's in Gremlins too. Have you watched Gremlins too? That's kind of
no, not since I was a kid, I'd say. Has that got
really anti-corporate?
Oh, that's cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was just watching a thing a couple of hours ago about how it was a video about why do we like the anti-hero and the asshole, and it was about like Rick and Morty and Breaking Bad and all that. And it was saying how it was a wisecrack video, but it was saying how Greek plays in that it used to be the anti-hero was trying to beat fate, and you can't beat fate. But now these anti-heroes are trying to beat society. So we still hope that they can change society, or you can beat society, you can't beat fate. So it was all about how awful, big corporations are. And that's why we still root for the asshole, because there is a thing he's trying to defeat there, even though he's being an asshole.
Even though he's an asshole, but he's against the big.
Yeah, and he has a chance of doing some good, I guess. Whereas like Rick and Morty, Rick's against the big corporation, whereas in the Greek plays the asshole was trying to defeat fate, and you can't defeat fate. So yeah.
Wow, man, this is fascinating stuff. Yeah. I've got to listen to your podcast. So how do you feel now that you're going to go ahead with things? Like you're probably a bit stuck with the whole, as we all are, with the stand-up is just ground to a halt. All right. I don't know. Are you just going to go back to writing scripts?
That's what I've been doing. I've had just a couple of stand-up gigs back the last week or so, and like we were saying, I was like, oh, don't miss this, and then did 3 gigs and went, oh, I missed this. And I do like stand-up is such a pure art form that you can just go, I want to make a joke about what just happened with the government today, and I can write a really good point and I can say it, and that's great, and I can show a whole different perspective on blah blah. And that's, so I definitely want to keep doing stand up. It'd be nice to keep both going. But
have you ever written for other comedians stand up?
Only a like really small amount, like like if someone was on a panel show, but like only a couple of times. But it's pretty similar to writing. I've written for like, the Now Show and News Quiz and those Radio 4 type things. So yeah, I've not written for someone's stand-up show where I think you'd have to be in their head a fair bit, but I think it wouldn't be that. I think you'd kind of just, because I wrote for a sketch show in Australia that was Troy Kinney, and that was quite a different style of sketch to what I write. And his stuff was more like looking at everyday things and being very observational, and I found out it was quite a good exercise to learn to just write in that style when you're not used to it. So I think it'd be quite similar.
Right. And do you think the stand-up scene is healthy enough in the UK and Ireland? I mean, I don't know if you've been to Ireland, but I mean, there's certainly some articles coming out about misogyny in the stand-up scene. Is that something that you've experienced, or are you?
I mean, it's there. I think I've been pretty lucky and not had much. I think the stuff I've had, either I forget a lot of stuff pretty easily, and I've not had anything scarring happen to me. I think all the stories you hear, I can believe them, or and as in I believe and not be surprised. But I think I don't know. I think it needs to get better, but it also, there's a lot of good people in stand-up, so it's not like it's a doomed industry or something. But yeah. So.
Well, listen, it's been really nice chatting to you.
You too. Yeah.
Great. And what's the name of your podcast again?
A Thin Layer of Film.
Thin Layer of Film. Definitely going to be listening to that.
Thanks.
It's been really good chatting to you, Heidi. And hopefully I'll see you on the live circuit at some point in the future.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Do you gig over here much?
Well, I've started doing Edinburgh again now that my kids are grown up.
Yeah.
I have a new lease of life.
Yeah, hopefully there will be in Edinburgh for us to meet up in next year.
Oh, yeah. I was going to be doing Glastonbury as well, stand-up.
Oh, man.
And that was really horrible not to do that.
Yeah. Was I meant to recommend?
Yes! Oh my God, you're reminding me. Very unprofessional of me. Yes, because that's what we do here on this show. Yeah. We get each comedian to recommend someone else that they like, that are on the scene. So who would you like to recommend?
Well, who I was gonna recommend I don't know if you'll have heard of them, but now that I know you're Irish, you will have heard of them, is Eleanor Tiernan. She's not like an up and comer, but it's just, she's someone that I think needs more attention than she gets and more airplay. And we're friends. Like, we lived near each other about 4 years ago when she just moved to London, and we just ran into each other and started having coffee and that. But her shows in Edinburgh, I just think are so brilliant. And every time any friends or family come, I always recommend her and Nick Elleray, and my friends and family always go see them, and they always come back going like, so clever and so wonderful. And yeah.
Oh, that's brilliant. Yeah. Oh, really? I'd love to get Eleanor on here. I know her.
Oh, yeah. I'm sure she'd be up for it. And yeah, she's just so clever. It's great stuff.
Yeah, she's brilliant. Yeah. Brilliant. Thanks a lot.
No worries.
Good call there. All right. Thanks, Heidi. I'll talk to you soon. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you. Bye.